Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction, Ray. I will try to give you a little introduction to some of the key deposits in Tajikistan and Afghanistan. And I have not been to all, of course. And in Tajikistan, I will give you an idea just about a couple, and then I will take you to the mines and speak something about the geology and mineralogy. But it's also trying to show you it needs a lot of planning, and it's not so easy even if you did your planning as well as you could. My first plan was to go to Tajikistan in 1995, and I had very good contacts. I had contacts with the chief geologist for Pamir Kvartsamosvetny, who I dedicate this talk to. We'll see a picture of him or a couple a bit later, and some of his old photographs from 1980s and 1990. And a bit over half the talk will be about Tajikistan, and then some Afghanistan. Now there's so many new places discovered, and I will just try to give you an idea. The picture you see here on the right side, and where I'm standing, it's Tajikistan. On the other side of the Punch River, it's Afghanistan. And here it's quite complex geology. And we are at the Kukhilal, the spinel, clinahumite, fosterite, gem quality of all these three species. And the beautiful rutile crystals here. There are even pegmatites here with rare minerals, with magnesium columbite, and so on, the type locality. And the mountains around, there are plenty of localities, but they're very, very high up. And just across the river on the Afghan side, there are several localities with gem quality spinels, mostly purple color. So the whole region is very rich, I must say. So we will look at some big scale maps and some smaller scale. And I will start with just showing you one specimen. This one now happens to be from Pakistan, but in Afghanistan you have the same. So I just want to show you one typical specimen. We speak about black uglies, but here is a white ugly. So it's a feldspar crystal with a big beryllinite cogwheel on it, which is something which is extremely rare, because beryllinite by itself is not crazily rare, but in such large crystals. And the mountains that I will take you to, most of the deposits are very, very young. They are formed, some are forming now, some are 8, 10 to about 23, 24 million years old, which is, almost like yesterday in geological terms. So I don't know why it's not moving. I have to see why my PowerPoint is not moving here. Let's see. Do you see my second picture now?
There you go. We've got you, Peter.
Okay, very good. So I want to dedicate this to Anatoly Skrigetil, who was an excellent geologist and the director of Pamir Kvartsamosvetny. Here he is with a big hamburgite crystal, which we'll come back to. At that time, that was the biggest known in the world. And several pegmatites in eastern Pamir are very rich in hamburgite, some lovely twins and so on, and many other minerals like eRMS, which is not that common. And I also dedicate to all the geologists and miners who discovered, mapped, and studied the deposit of Pamir in Afghanistan, including Sarif Jurayev, Musaffar, and Rosovsky, and also to my wife. Because when you go to crazy places and you're gone long, it is not easy for family. And I show you this one because when you want to travel somewhere, I told you I was going here, planned to go 1995, and Anatoly Skrigetil was the key contact. I had contacts with other people as well, but it takes years and years to find people far away and to find the right ones, and then to try to find information to study the deposits beforehand. And in 96, I was going to go here, but it was internal fights, and I was going with a geologist from St. Petersburg State University, who had very good contacts here also. And suddenly he said, oh, we can't go. We had planned to go just a few weeks later. And he said the Mujahedin had taken the road to Murghab. And then he calls me up a few days later and he said, oh, we can go now. And okay, so they're gone now. Yeah, they're a kilometer from the road. So it's telling a little bit about the craziness. Of course, that's not how we in the Western world are used to. And you can see the road signs here on the left. As you can see, most of the places you will not even heard the name of Dushanbe and maybe Khorog. And to the right is the topographical map of part of the Pamir. Now it's geographical north to the right, but it's showing the high mountains. So the peaks are between, well, the lower ones are 5,000 and most of the terrain up on the Pamir plate is 4,000 meter, and it's up to 6,000 to 7,400 meter. And it's heavily glaciated some areas, and when it's not, it's even permafrost in most of the localities I will take you to now. So for those who haven't studied much of geology mineralogy, I know in Rochester Symposium, most are very well aware of geology and are long-term for decades and decades collectors. But the main reason for the Earth to be so rich in the minerals is multifold. First of all, when the Earth was created, we have 92 natural occurring elements, which is far from all planets. And we have the free atmosphere with oxygen, we have water on the surface, and we have plate tectonics. So I will take you to the zone here, of course, where the Indian continent has collided with the Asian continent some 23 million years ago. India was down here, and magmatic activity, lava pushed, it drifted north and collided with the Asian continent. We had the formation of the Hindu Kush Mountains, many mineralizations in Pamir, the Karakoram, and the Himalayas were formed at this time. That was just showing the natural occurring elements, of course. And here is examples of, this is the Pakistani side, here is Hindu Kush, Afghanistan, but it's the same. We have the Indian plate here colliding with the Eurasian plate, and the Afghan side and Pamir side is just to the north and northwest and west. We have about 5,700 minerals on the planet, and many other planets may have 50 or 100 only. So many people ask, don't you want to go to Mars and look for minerals? Well, of course, it's interesting also, but I think the planet is way beyond what any one of us could even dream of studying the deposits. There's so many interesting places. And the place I will take you to now, most of them, I would like to spend a month or two in each little deposit to really understand it. And usually have to come back many times, as you know. So here we have a map from John Soule, who is an American geologist who lived in East Africa very much. He studied large scale structures. That is a very good start, but you must also study the smaller scale within tens of kilometers or hundreds of kilometers. So I welcome you to the beautiful young mountains. So I write here 8 to 24 million young oils. This map is for gem pegmatites, but we will look at several other types. So when it comes to pegmatites, we will go to the very, very far right here. These are some periods of the Earth's development since 4.5 billion years old, when there were many pegmatite fields developed. So you can clearly see that there are some specific periods of the Earth development when there are many fields. And to the very right are the Himalayas. This is just for age dating. We are not going into that. So I will just mention two localities in the north of Tajikistan, Mushistan, for a very simple reason that when I was a kid, I was always wondering, did they take copper from Cyprus, Cyprum, and mix it with tin from Cornwall? They were so clever, they tried different things. And it's very possible that the first bronze was in fact made from the ores from Mushistan in Tajikistan at 2,300 meters altitude. And I will just mention another deposit also up here in the north. No, I don't see my arrow. Okay, here. It's not visible there. Okay. So Mushistan here is bronze from the Span collection, about 6,000 years old. So we know very well this area of Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, was very early development of the bronze culture. And they had several mines, and we will have a look at one map here, Andronovo culture and the prehistorical mines number 1 and 2. Mushistan is one of them. To the right, I just put in Altai Mountains. So over here, it's not the same region, but what I found interesting, I saw recently, that leather shows where they used pyrite crystals at the sole of the shoes that were sewed in to make them less slippery. They're 2,300 years old. Now, Mushistan, you can look that up on Mindat if you like, and there's quite a lot, but it's, if you melt many of the ores there, in fact, you will get bronze. So here is from a German archaeologist who had studied this some years ago. And Darapios, I must mention when we are in Tajikistan. It's I haven't been there. In fact, when I asked Dmitry Belakovsky at the Firstman Museum many years ago about it, he said, well, where they found a lot of the rare minerals, it was in a big black boulder on the glacier ice. And of course, with the annual sun and heating of the stone, it has sunk into the glacier. So I will just show you what it looks like. See in the middle of the photo here, the glacier. Here is marked, but in fact, here is, you can see on the surface. But what I understood, the main boulder for many of the rare minerals was up here in this glacier. And this is from Mindat, a picture showing the glacier melting. And somewhere behind there, maybe X meters deep, is the boulder that produced several of those new minerals. So it's type locality for 40 mineral species. Unfortunately, I have not been there, and I'm sure there are many Russian and maybe Tajik geologists and mineralogists who have been there who could give an excellent talk about this place alone. That would be needed an hour, I think. So I will take you now to Pamir, the roof of the world. The localities, we will go to Eastern Pamir. Oops. Here I see, here, localities for ruby and some pegmatites very close to them. It's right by the Chinese border where we have some rare minerals. Then we will go down to the southwestern part of Eastern Pamir to Kukhilal, spinel deposit. And we will look here, both on the Tajik side and Afghan side. Here is the famous Lapis mine. There's a Lapis mine here also, just to show you the deposit. So here, the yellow, you can see the border, and maybe it's difficult to see. Okay, we are going up to, if you can see middle right, top right, Shilamika. I've marked for you the yellow dots here, and then down to the left. And you can see the mountains here up to 6,000–7,000 meters. This is the region. Even traveling there takes a few days, because to go to the region, you need, after you reach Dushanbe, you have to get permission, and you need to have a local guide who knows everything to drive you. And it takes about 2 days. And we drove 1,900 kilometers along the Panj River and the border of Afghanistan. And they recommend you should be 30 kilometers from the border for the risk of kidnapping. But the road is right by the river, so how can you avoid that? You can't drive in the mountains, there are no roads. And here are some local pegmatites. Of course, you have to spend a lot of time here to really study the place. We looked at some things and road cuts in the mountains. Now you can see here in the very north of this map is Rankul. My arrow is not showing very well. Down to the southwest, a little below the middle is Murgab. And in the center, above the center of the image is the massive which we will go to. And the plain is about 4,000 meters, and those peaks are 5,000, a bit over 5,000 meters, and with permafrost. And here you can see the distance from Murgab, about 40 kilometers to the Snesna Nadezhda ruby deposit. And I marked the Shilamika is one of the, well, it's the most famous pegmatite here. And right in the valley to the east of the marked are many, many pegmatites, but you have to get them from the backside. So this is the Kurt pegmatite field. And this is something I think we need to update Mindat, for instance, here. You can see the red pegmatites, and in the center, the pink. The granite and parts of it is gneissic now, which is a structure intrusion, and it's intruded into mostly limestones. The furthermost pegmatite Shilamika is intruded into quartzites. So here is Amazonitovaya Shila. It's the right side of Kukhilal Valley. It means when you go down river in the valley, there's no real river in the upper part of the valley because it's very dry. But it means on the right side, that means the northeast side. And here is pegmatite 3C because there's so many there. Beryl 7, for instance. Here is topaz aquamarine. And our most highly fractionated is the mica, and next to it. And here is Doroshny pegmatite. This had the best hamburgites and huge number of 2, 3, 4 centimeter hamburgites, some 10 centimeter, a beautiful big one, and some purplish color. We will look at a couple. And here is a geological map of Doroshny pegmatite. Here is Priatny, just to show you a little idea. And here is Shilamika. I have marked it. And here is view from it's 4,900 meter. And even if the valley is 4,000 meter, the permafrost here and very short season, maximum 2 months. It's a few weeks you can mine here, and very difficult. Every day you need to walk up and down. And one thing that I should mention here also, when you defrost a cavity, a pocket with crystals, you have to be extremely careful if it's a sunny day, not to let the sun reach that tourmaline or whatever you found, because it may just shatter. So you have to wrap it up in bubble wrap and keep it at a steady temperature. And in the middle here, you can see Shilamika and Malisha, the marked. And we will look at minerals from both of them. Here's Shilamika again. And here is elbaite from the Shilamika, small crystals, 2 centimeters. I have many specimens to be able to analyze and try to study deposit. Topaz from mica, both blue and champagne colored. And here are more elbaite. And here's detailed geology of Shilamika. And here's the northern face. You can see some snow is laying, and this is during the best part of the season. And here are some beautiful examples. The tourmalines can be multicolored. This is from the Malisha vein, which is 4,800 meters, just 400 meters away, and northwest of Shilamika, which was discovered by this team of geologists. Here is beautiful colored tourmaline. In fact, I really like those colors in the tourmalines and the association with several rare species. There, for instance, secondary pockets here with elongated etched up to 5 centimeter purple scapolites, absolutely lovely. Here is the 15.8 centimeter hamburgite collected by Squiggletail. Unfortunately, it was stolen from him. He was robbed in 1998, and he disappeared mostly with gem quality cut stones and gem rough from his home, and nobody ever saw him. And this popped up in the USA, this specimen. Here are hamburgites from Doroshny, which we saw the pegmatite. It's on the backside of the ruby mine, which we will now look at. So you see the border with China is very close, and the similar deposits occur across the border with China. There are even gem tourmaline deposits here. There are many gem tourmalines just across the border from into Afghanistan, also here in the Wakhan corridor, and plenty of spinel deposits. Here is Murgab, temperature -50, -55 in winter. So very cool area. And here is the Sneersnö, age dated 23 ± 1.6 million years, which correspond to similar ages, Yegdalek in Afghanistan, ruby deposit, and Magok in Myanmar. And you see it's very high altitude, very strong sun. A lake, this is something 4,600 meters, this lake. And here is on the way, the mountain in the back is where Shilamika is, and the ruby deposits. Here you can start in the middle, you can see the gray dots, those are the mines at 4,600, 4,700 meters for ruby. Here you can see them on the right side of the butte in the foreground. And here was this in Soviet times in 1980s, early 1990s, where the geologists who found and mapped this deposit were living. And here is a view from Nadezhda, and looks like moon landscape. Here is Nadezhda vein. The ruby is concentrated. Here we have limestone marbles. So they have been flipped over. They're very, very steeply dipping. And there's some zones, in principle, the two parallel zones where you have layers where there's fuchsite, which is not a species anymore, but chrome-rich green mica. And there's some graphite, which is often in ruby deposits as well. So conditions here were perfect. There was the chromium, of course, ruby simple aluminium oxide, spinel. You need magnesium, like in Kukhilal, where there's magnesium-rich skarns and rocks there. And here you can see the steeply dipping vein, something like 70 degrees. In that part, there are not much of corundum. There's corundum, but not ruby quality. And here you can see excavations to the right of the middle. You can see those trenches, and they made trenches along 8 kilometers of this ruby mineralization, and it extends 30-40 kilometers well into China. Here is a geological cross-section just showing the limestones. And here is another detail. I will not go into that. Here is view from Nadezhda. And here is Kukhilal with the gem ruby rough. And in fact, Nadezhda locality and Snežnaja is known for really, of course, it's extremely rare in any deposit, but the top quality of ruby, which they call pigeon blood red. So normally this was a friend, Dax, he's an American gemologist. I usually, when I go to places that are hard to go to, I go alone. And he had asked me if I could take him to the Ural Mountains, which I know fairly well. And a few years ago we went, I took him to the Urals, and then I had planned to go here for a few days. So I arranged for him to come along. Here, I'll go faster. You see a few of the pegmatite, of the ruby deposits. The pegmatites now are just above the line of the ruby deposits. And this is something I just looked, studied Google Earth carefully, marked where they have done the trenches to try to understand the geology and so on, and compare with geological map. So the valley to the right now, you have hundreds of pegmatites. Of course, it's a dozen which were the richest ones, and which were dug up by the local geological parties, and that yielded, for instance, these beautiful hamburgites and geromedjivite and so on. Okay, so now we will come to the world's most famous spinel locality. This will be quite a few images to give you an impression, but of course, everyone who is interested, it's gem quality spinel, but the deposit is famous for many nice mineral specimens as well. For instance, you can, I don't think you can read it, but you have beautiful long root heels. There is the magnesiocolumbite in a pegmatite vein. There's several pegmatite veins running through the deposit with some colored tourmaline as well, yellow and brownish yellow. And you have clinohumite in beautiful crystals. What you can see at the Kukhilal in the middle of the river, the geology continues into Afghanistan. That's what I said. There are plenty of deposits in the mountains around, and even spinel, of course, you need the magnesium besides aluminium and oxide in the limestones. But there are many deposits. I've spoken with young people who climb the mountains, 5,000 and higher, and they know many localities for spinel. And here is view from Kukhilal. And here is the view towards Kukhilal, Afghanistan, Tajikistan. Punch River is very narrow here. Some places 15-20 meter, some places up to 100 meter. And deposit is high up. Now the mine, it's known since ancient times. Some places written from the 8th century and so on. But interviewing the oldest man in the village, who had a lot of knowledge, and other people, and there are some old literature hints also. So in fact, it was worked probably before the birth of Christ, so more than 2,000 years, and it has a lot of interesting old history, which I should publish in some paper, because I have a lot of information about this place that I've never seen published. And here is the village of Kukhilal. Very, very nice and friendly people. They said in the old days, people came from the Afghan side and robbed them and stole women and so on. So in Badakhshan, I don't know if this was traditionally a big difference, but the very, very nice and friendly people here. I'm not saying that they would be less friendly on the Afghan side, but it was just the locals said that historically they were known to, they came robbers from the other side. And apricot trees, and even though they have very, very small piece of land, they're self-sustaining. So here I'm visiting a miner's home, very, very friendly, and his father. Beautiful, everything homegrown, of course, not the chocolate to the left here, but everything else grown home and home baked. And one thing you can see, the people were very nice and friendly, but the dogs also in here in Tajikistan, very nice, friendly dogs. It means that they're treated well. It's not so far over through northern tip of Afghanistan into Pakistan. And in Pakistan, most dogs are very aggressive, and their owners, they have to throw stones towards the dogs to hinder them from attacking you. So I take that as for quite a few generations, they've been treated poorly. I don't know the reason why it's such a big difference. So here you can see the mine above the miner's house. Here is the Punch River below me. The house here is where the geologists in Soviet times were staying up near the mine. And here we're meeting with the miners early morning to go up to the mine. And here is Kukhilal Darya. It's a small stream coming through the village. And of course, it's excellent. It's watering year round. Well, in winter, they don't need to grow, but during the summer period, which gets very dry, they have water coming from the mountains and the snowfields. And here is the village from above, from the lower tunnel. So in Soviet time, they opened several new tunnels. There were some very old ancient tunnels, but they drilled the deposit, they did very big studies, and they found big amounts, even gem forsterite. The good crystal, they almost look like feldspar crystals. So big forsterite, you could cut 15 carat stones. Of course, we as collectors, we would like to have the crystal and not the cut stone. I've seen such cut stones at the gem show, and I was surprised. I didn't know there were such quality forsterite crystals. And the clinohumite and spinel I also hadn't seen until I came to the deposit. They were occurring absolutely together. Here's up at the mine. I'll show you a few pictures. And you can barely find published pictures from the mine because it's very hard. First of all, you need permission to go to Pamir at all, and you must tell exactly where you're going. Then you need permission to visit Kukhilal. Even the village you're not allowed to visit. So you really need to have good contact and ask permissions. And from whoever has the mining claim, it's given out for a few years. And that's for all the deposits. You need to find out who has a mining claim or not and get permission to visit. So it's not so easy. And besides, you cannot take a single sample from Tajikistan, which means that in case you would find something, you would need to find a dealer or somebody who has export license, who can export those stones, and you can buy it from them at a show. For instance, Pakistani minerals, I've also done the same. I found somewhere a Pakistani dealer. If you buy something, the dealer buys it for you and you buy it at the Munich show, for instance. Could be half year later, 1 year later, doesn't matter. But then you avoid all these documents and waiting for days and days to get export license and so on. Because there's shipping tons and tons every year. If you have a small box of self-collected minerals, 5-10 kilo, depending on here, to study geology, would like to sample a lot, but I took pictures and I learned and observed with my eyes. And so there also, here is from Soviet time, this tunnel here on the backside, but this is where the old tunnels in ancient times were 1,000, 2,000 years ago, and on the side of this valley where the stream going down to Kukhilal is starting. And here the miner was pointing to another spinel locality up high on that ridge. And here are Soviet time. Here's from the Kukhilal village. Beautiful small houses and gardens, and mixing very old traditional styles with modern. Here you can see the pink purplish spinel with the orange clinohumite. It's called, so Kukhilal means mountain of spinel, lal is spinel, and they call this clinohumite, they also call for fire lal because of the color. You see here is even gem quality. And here is a larger crystal I bought in 1996 at the Munich Mineral Show from one geologist who worked here in the 80s. Just some local hospitality. And here is inside the main mine. There are several tunnels at several different levels. And here's fabulous clinohumite, cut clinohumite, cut spinels. So here are old antique spinels engraved. And here's from Federico Barlocher, who is a dealer in Switzerland and is living in Myanmar also, a big 80-carat spinel. And sometimes the spinel occurs in pyrrhotite like here, or in talc. So in fact, it seems like there is primary and there is a secondary crystallization of spinel, secondary in the talc, so recrystallization. Here is a close-up of this 80-carat spinel. The largest that I know of is a friend who many years ago, she passed away. Now she had 170-carat spinel from here. And we're going down, beautiful evening light, going down to the village again. Here's one of the old mines. And here is the largest 4.8 kilo crystal that was found in Soviet times when the Soviet Union, Tajikistan became independent state, not part of the Soviet Union anymore. This biggest crystal that was in Moscow, it was given to Tajikistan. And what I've heard is that they just, when it came to Dushanbe, they just broke it up, unfortunately, and probably sold them to cut stones out of it. Would have been better to preserve it, obviously. So here is in the old mine tunnels. And one thing I should say that the local villages were not taken by what they locally say Arabs, but I think they were all Persians who were mining, 1,200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, and they had slaves from other regions from Afghanistan. And to get food, they must find spinel. So when they found very, very nice spinel, they would hide it in the mine so they could give a little bit for every week so they would get food. The village elder. And here is a stream again. And look at the beautiful carpets. There is a story that the first spinel was found by women on the slope when it fell down stones, and they tried to grind it up and color cloth. Here it is color really in the colors of spinel. It's very possible that happened, but it's not the first find of spinel. And here is from the animals to the right. It's dried dung to heat the house in winter. And the region is very cold, -20, -30, and has long cold winter. And not as cold as Murghab, where it's -50, -55. The coldest in Tajikistan, -67 recorded, which is between here and Murghab. So we are leaving Kukhilal and we're going into crossing just the river in the background to the right into Afghanistan. And just across the river, some beautiful blue sapphires. And here is one of the pegmatites by Kukhilal village where there are yellow tourmalines, brownish yellow tourmalines found. And this is what the region, you see you have the peaks, 6,000 meter behind the closest peaks. And here is a local shop going towards the Vakan corridor. On the left, you can see filling first petrol into this, which you need to fill into the car on the left here. A local woman fetching water. And here is the river along the border, camels. And now we will go to the deposit in the very south, Lajar Vardara. It's a Lapis deposit. It's very, very high. Here's from Mindat. And here my friend Edward Grew, he was there in the 90s and documented. So I show you something you can get hold of, this paper from him, which is very interesting. And you see highly glaciated, and the pictures Edward gave me some years ago with glaciers coming down, and he stayed with the Soviet geologist at the time, working the mine. Unfortunately, the picture from the mine showing the Lapis he has given me years ago, and they wouldn't open anymore for some reason. But anyway, the Lapis, it looks very similar, the mineralization, as to in Afghanistan, which we will shortly go to. So here is Ed in the middle. And now we cross. You can see here, in the middle up is the yellow, that's a road near the border to Tajikistan to Afghanistan. And you can just see some of the pegmatite districts described in Mindat. Now, just across from Kukhilal, the river is, okay, here are some glaciers, even on the south face of the peaks, 6,700 meters on the Tajik side. So you understand this very, very tough mountain terrain here. And these gentlemen, they're standing in Tajikistan, down in the valley is the border. The first hill in the background is Afghanistan, and the white mountain in the back is Pakistan. Here's the Vakhan corridor. So people even living in Pakistan, they would go the Vakhan corridor across, and some 50 years ago, they would collect rubies, which I've heard from a local geologist in Pakistan. So we cross the river to Afghanistan. In the marbles are in Badakhshan, beautiful sapphires. You have beautiful scapolites in metasomatic rocks also, like to the left here. The rosy quartz is from Paron, from pegmatites. And we look at a couple of pegmatites in Afghanistan. Is there life after death? Trespass here and find out. So I have shown some picture from pegmatites many years ago, so I will go a bit faster. Here is the first discovery in Pesh Valley in 1959. So Kala village, they found in the field some tourmalines, and those pegmatites are quite rich right by Kala village. Here you can see the fields below, they're called the field mines. And Pesh Valley is often given, but Pesh Valley, there are dozens of deposits in Pesh Valley. So here is Gozalak, Varadesh, you can see gem pencils of tourmaline. So I always encourage all these dealers, Peshawar, to find out exact locality. I'm not interested in the minerals if they don't know the exact locality. So I'm trying to encourage. Paprock was discovered by a herd in 1969. And here are the mountains of Paprock. You can see in the upper middle, you can see some lighter veins, which are pegmatite veins crossing the mountain. Here is one article I wrote for the MR. I'll just show a couple of images. And this is from Gamata. Here is the miner, the chief geologist, the vein, pegmatite vein coming from the left, and you can see the entrance to the tunnel. The best were found in the 1970s, large up to 15, 20 centimeter indigo blue indigolites, beautiful. Some, mostly they're blue, a little bit green sometimes. And here's the mining crew in the 1990s. Here's a cut one, 17 karat by Viktor Tuslukov, and my wife designed a piece of jewelry for herself from that. And here is the Paprock Loimarin in July with the snow. And I'll show you without the snow. You can see the veins really, really twisting and bending. And the tunnels are a couple of 100 meters long. The first article I wrote was in the German magazine Mineralienwelt. I try to publish, I don't have much time for it, but sometimes I write some article. I have a raised hand here, I say. Should we give a chance for questions here?
Peter,
yeah, questions into the Q&A. If you've got a question, click Q&A, and we'll host will coordinate it. Peter, you don't need to worry about those.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So Paprock in July, plenty of snow. Oh, no, am I blocked again? Okay, so some old pictures also. Here is Jan Massawi mine. For the local miners, it takes 6 to 8 days to walk. It's just to show you how far it is to get to some of those places. They're just small green terminals there, so no rare minerals so far. Maybe there will be, but it's just to show you what efforts they're going through to mine and find something. And they can only do it in the summer season. You see high above the clouds over 5,000 meters. Here is just to show the different type of pegmatites cross section. Here you see a more than 2,000 meter vertical difference, and the fractionation of the pegmatites, so more highly enriched in lithium and so on, cesium, beryllium, higher up. And it's interesting because it's maybe one of the few places on Earth where you have such a huge, well, you have on Pakistan side also horizontal exposure and difference in the pegmatites. Elbite with beryllinite, like I showed you here, not as beautiful. Manganotantalite and tourmaline, stibiotantalites, we all like. Here is a beryl, morganite with manganotantalite. And this is beautiful from Peru, from Saphira Minerals, beautiful colors. Typical pap rock, lovely pap rock, big. This is about 30 centimeter, and so is this one, beautiful indigolite. The Pinnacle collection. I'll pass Vitaniemite. This one is absolutely fantastic. We saw earlier the new Pakistani ones. This is the best in the world from Paprock, and a fantastic Hamburgite in the MIM Museum. They found even larger, but this I think is maybe the nicest one. And the Mavi pegmatite is famous for beautiful indigolite, morganite, kunzite, and here we a combination is from Waigal, and the twin to the right is from Maui, and morganite from Maui. So there was a question if it was from Pesh Valley before these apatites or from Maui. I will try to find out the exact locality because most of the dealers say they don't really care to find out, but I will post it for you. Here are some kunzites. Waiga is cut by Viktor Tuslakov, and beryllinite from Paprock. And here is Kanakana. There are two huge pegmatites. The Kanakana in Bangladesh in Pesh Valley, and the Maui pegmatite, and those are many, many kilometers long. The largest pegmatite recorded by Rosovsky was 30 kilometers. Fluornitro microlite, rosa quartz. And this big beryllinite with tourmaline on the right, I was offered many, many years ago, and I wish the museum had bought it. Pollucite and topaz and petalite gem quality, some of the rare species. Manganotantalite, beautiful deep red piece, and new chrysoberyl was found 2018. That we saw, and of course the specimens uncleaned. If you're offered from the miners, this is what the pictures will look like when they first find it. Here is indigolite to the left and a kunzite. Indigolite looks like this when it's been cleaned, so it's not so easy to really know what they look like. Herdrite on albite, kunzite, span collection, and this is Kanakana. And here is a small spodumene kunzite deposit where the miners are sleeping in the mine. The green one up to the left has been irradiated. They will fade very quickly, so I suggest you don't buy this. And now we're going to the last deposits of Afghanistan. Ruby, there are some aquamarines, but most aquamarines are from Pakistan. This is an Afghan aquamarine, and I saw some in the just 1989-90. I saw some nice. Here's a huge indigolite, beautiful blue tourmaline, some more tourmaline. And here's Ron Jacobson. He is collector of mostly small specimens, but his excellent eye for different colors. And to the right of the Irininite photo by Joe Budd. I have the shortened name for the, it's the wrong. Grossular Kantiwa. So in fact, these grossulars, they were found in the metamorphic rocks just above a pegmatite famous for lovely kunzite, but when they come out of the mine, they're really, really nice blue, and you have to protect them from sunlight or they will turn pink. I found myself in the Ocean View mine, blue kunzites. So there's nothing funny about them at all. We will visit the Lapis lazuli mines briefly. Here is a laterite. So of course, Lapis lazuli is mostly consists of laterite. It's famous with some pyrite inclusions. Crystals were very uncommon, and Pierre Barriand, he traded quite a few for a fabulous aquamarine, which value is many, many times today what the laterite crystals he traded, but they were so rare. He visited the area in the early 70s, and even early 60s, he was in Iran and Afghanistan. And Lapis lazuli the Sarisang mines are the oldest known gem mines on the planet. Now for us as mineral collectors, it's not the chunks of the lapis lazuli we want, but rather the crystals and a lot of the rare minerals. So in the same, I didn't really say that, but both the Kukhilal and the Lapis deposit, they're in fact, these sediments, original sediment, are now metamorphic. And they are very, very old. They are 2 billion years old. Of course, the recrystallization, this took place in the latest orogeny, but there's a lot of interesting minerals in these mines, both of them. And here is laterite over nepheline. And there are many pseudomorphs and well crystallized, even the mica and the sodalite well crystallized. There's another sodalite, an afghanite. Afghanite can be even gem quality, and of course afghanite, it's only the last few years that we could get good afghanite crystals. Here's a few pictures from the tunnel and a few of the ancient pieces of jewelry. Here is modern. Somebody maybe want to have an idea for if they're gonna refurbish their bathroom. Here's from the Lapis mines. A few images, and the Lapis normally what they sell. And they're mining about a few years ago now with the COVID times, I don't know, but before COVID times, they're mining about 600 tons of commercial Lapis. Specimens is, of course, I don't know, some dozen or hundreds of kilos. And what I understand, these deposits of the laterite crystals and the rare minerals, afghanite and so on, is very close to the Lapis mine, but not in the same horizon of the bedding. And here we can see the typical laterite, the pyrite, and the dealer stock, and here from the mine. And of course, you're all aware of that sometimes they take lesser quality lapis in color. So now it's not for us mineral collectors, we don't do that, but the dealers have to be careful to know what they're buying, and huge chunks to carry down the valley. So it's not easy to transport this 600 tons from the mountains down to the market in mostly Peshawar. I don't know if they've started any market in Kabul or okay, here is miners. You can see the mountain to the left with the miners down to the left. So of course, mining is always very dangerous activity. And the spotted lapis to the right, and miner full of dust in cold area. Here is a Scythian electrum with lapis. And here's a beautiful Afghanite. I got this picture recently from Quality Afghan. It's beautiful, big specimen. Some jewelry, some old historical objects here to drink out of this ancient. And hyene. I didn't speak about the mineralogy. Mineralogy is quite complex, and there's an excellent article in Mineralogical Record, and I advise everyone to reread it. And here is from Gerhard Bannstedt's collection. So there are lots of pseudomorphing going on, and very interesting such. Here you see another one. Here is Afghanite, and of course, I had damage to my eyes twice many years ago from using ultraviolet lamp too much. So I'm very careful nowadays. I advise everyone to be that. And I'm not sure which one this was. I have normally notes on each image, and this image didn't have the note. I'm not quite sure if it's also mica, looks maybe pseudomorphing. And here is Afghanite and ultraviolet light. And here's a cut Afghanite, 3.36 carats. So we're coming to the end of our Afghan adventure. We have a few more images to see. And I want to thank all the photographers also, and the collectors, of course, who supplied the specimens to the photographers. Here is a fabulous sodalite, and we will see a close-up. Look at the quality. So this is, of course, from the pocket with the pyrite crystals and the sodalite. So there are a number of minerals which has the similar blue color, of course, so you have to be careful. I have to, as you saw the ruby before, I have to just mention the Pamir emerald mines. I have also many images from here. It's just northeast of Kabul, so it used to be very easy to visit. Now, with the new regime, I'm not sure, because what I understand, the people in Pamir are rather independent, so I do not know that. But it's famous for high quality emeralds. These are not the cleanest ones, but they're very, very clean, I've seen. And there are many other deposits in Afghanistan with interesting. I got these pictures many years ago, gold in chrysocolla with malachite from Sarkashan mountain. And this was just what I understood, picked up from the ground of the secondary deposit on the copper deposit. So very interesting. So I want to thank my children, He's my little son and my big daughter and my big son when he was smaller. And of course, my wife and my parents and all fellow collectors and all the geologists I thank in the beginning also. Now, please encourage all the young ones because it's so important. If each one of us encourage one or two, there will be somebody taking over and hopefully picking up some of the knowledge we have gathered. And here is my little son. So thank you very much for your attention. And the last picture is where I started my first specimens when I was age 1. I collected from the gravel here at my grandparents' house some muscovite, some feldspars, and some quartz. So thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any questions. So I have a question.
That was wonderful.
Thank you very much. I hope it was a bit fast, but I wanted to give you an impression of it's very difficult terrain. And of course, you need to go to each deposit and be there many times or a long period to really try to study like the Lapis mines or the Kukhilal, the spinel deposit. You would need to be there a whole season and follow the mining to try to understand the geology and the mineralizations.
Yeah, every one of those locations seemed like you could do an entire program, a whole 30 or 40 minutes on it.
Absolutely.
So we had a very early question in the Q&A, and it just says, where were the Chilla tourmalines? Were they right out of the ground?
Yes, they were. They were right out of the ground. That was on site. So that was, the color in the big hand. That was just a little bit below the mountain. So they were out of the ground. They were taking down the mountain. They had been adjusted to the temperature. Otherwise, you can't even bring them out like that, So it's a bit warmer down there because it's permafrost in the pockets where you dig them.
This didn't come in the Q&A, but a question that came to mind with me, I'm a mineral collector, not so much a colored stone or gem collector, but is there, you had mentioned dealers who are purchasing that have to be careful of the dyeing of the lapis. I mean, is there an easy way to detect that?
Yes, I'm also not in that field. I'm a mineral collector, but I know these dealers, they will take the pieces from the lot and soak them. So in acetone, for instance, because I think most of those dyes are soluble in acetone, you will see the color right away. Of course, lazurite or lapis lazuli was used as a dye in historical times and very, very expensive makeup of Cleopatra and so on. So, but you will see the color, and it's not the lazurite dissolving.
Gotcha. So I'll just pause for a moment, but folks, we're coming up on time. But if anyone has any other questions, please post them real quick. Otherwise, Ray.
Yeah, Peter, that was just fantastic. What a great talk. I'm a little dizzy. I got to go back. You know what? For everybody who thought that those mineral specimens went by too quickly, don't forget everything's going to be on YouTube where you